A mom was left devastated when her 18-month-old daughter was diagnosed with childhood Alzheimer's. But before we start, please give the video a like and make sure to subscribe to Wonderbot and hit the bell so you'll never miss any uploads from us. As a parent, there are few things more nerve-wracking than when your child falls ill. Whether it's just a common cold or something more serious, those periods will often test the resolve of moms and dads. Sarah and Paul McLaughlin could certainly attest to that, as their young daughter Marion was given a shocking diagnosis in 2017. Residents of California, Paul and Sarah were already the proud parents of a daughter named Emily prior to Marion's birth. And following the latter's arrival, all appeared to be going well for the growing family, with Marion hitting an important milestone when she turned 9 months old. What's more, she uttered her first words at that time as well. However, Paul and Sarah also began to pick up on some worrying aspects of their youngest daughter's behavior during that period. While Marion learned her first words in good time, there were other scheduled landmarks that she wasn't hitting. Then, to compound the situation, the infant started to forget the knowledge that she'd acquired. With that in mind, Marion made frequent trips to see her doctor the following months, as her parents looked for an explanation. And during one of those visits, the physician noted that the young girl's spleen was bigger than expected, which led to further examinations. After they'd been completed, Sarah and Paul finally received answers to their questions in February 2017. Throughout any person's life, they may have to deal with some serious health issues. From heart problems to cancer, those ailments can often turn an individual's world upside down. But they can still be treated. Unfortunately, there are other diseases out there that can't be tended to as effectively. Alzheimer's disease is one such condition that doesn't yet have a cure. A form of dementia, this neurological issue has affected countless people over the years. Indeed, back in 2015, it was believed that there were close to 30 million cases of Alzheimer's across the world, causing close to 2 million deaths annually. The disease itself was first studied at the very start of the 20th century, when a man named Alois Alzheimer assessed a female patient. The psychiatrist referred to the lady as August D. and went on to monitor her progress over the next 5 years. When she passed away in 1906, Alzheimer then shared his findings with the world. In the ensuing half-decade, there were several other case-published accounts of this condition, which came to be known as Alzheimer's disease. Since then, the medical world has acquired considerably more knowledge about the ailment, and that in turn has led to an increase in public awareness. Thanks to that, a much greater number of people know the signs they have to look out for. The UK's National Health Service, NHS, currently provides some information about the issue on its website. Alzheimer's disease is most common in people over the age 65, the post reads. The risk of Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia increases with age, affecting an estimated 1 in 14 people over the age of 65. Alzheimer's disease also affects 1 in every 6 people over the age of 80, the article continues. But around 1 in every 20 cases of Alzheimer's disease affects people aged 40 to 65. This is called early or young onset Alzheimer's disease. In addition to that, the NHS touches upon another significant point. Given that the ailment is incurable, the medical service addresses the life expectancy of Alzheimer's patients. The post adds, people with Alzheimer's disease can live for several years after they start to develop symptoms, but this can vary considerably from person to person. Alzheimer's disease is a life-limiting illness, although many people diagnosed with the condition will die from another cause. As for the specific details, it's believed that those affected by Alzheimer's can survive for up to 9 years. It tends to be older people who are more likely to seek this information out, of course, as younger people aren't usually at risk. Nonetheless, a family in California were faced with an unimaginably traumatic situation in 2017. That year, Paul and Sarah McLaughlin were given life-changing news about their youngest daughter, Marion. Prior to that fateful day, the mom and dad had been seeking out an explanation for some concerning aspects of her development. Sarah went on to describe this period during an interview with British newspaper The Daily Mirror. "We noticed Marion wasn't reaching certain milestones on time," Sarah told the publication in June 2017. "At first, doctors told us there was nothing wrong with her, and it took 7 months for us to finally get a diagnosis." On that note, the root of the problem was eventually identified when Marion's physician picked up on something unusual. During one of Marion's examinations, the physician noticed that she had an enlarged spleen, which led to undergoing further examinations. At the end of that process, Sarah and Paul then received the results via phone call while at their house in February 2017. Tragically, however, neither of them could have predicted what they were about to hear. After receiving the results, Sarah wrote up a post on the lifestyle website Love What Matters, detailing the family's subsequent journey. At only 18 months old, Marion was diagnosed with the fatal metabolic condition Niemann-Pick type C, sometimes nicknamed childhood Alzheimer's, Sarah explained. It also shares symptoms of Parkinson's, ALS, and other horrific degenerative diseases. From there, Sarah revealed a bit more about the devastating condition, noting the effect that it can have on youngsters. All rare diseases are a gut punch, but Niemann-Pick type C and its related lysosomal storage disorders are a particular breed of cruel, the California resident continued. NPC children are often born seemingly perfectly healthy and develop normally for variable periods of time. Despite that normal progression, though, the children in question eventually begin to exhibit signs of their underlying condition, with Sarah highlighting some of them in her post. There are small symptoms at first, like sometimes becoming a little clumsy, showing some minor developmental delays, starting to struggle with tests in school, the mom explained, or getting a big belly, which is actually an enlarged spleen or liver. At that point, Sarah looked beyond those initial symptoms and addressed the horrifying results of Niemann-Pick type C. But first, she admitted that she hadn't been aware of conditions like this until Marion received her diagnosis. Following the news, the mother then realized that the ailment takes everything. Next, you often face tremors, seizures, cognitive decline, dementia, feeding tubes, choking, hearing loss, walkers to wheelchairs to bedridden, slurred speech, and then losing the ability to speak at all, Sarah wrote. You also lose the ability to move your body at all. No more smiles, pneumonia, loneliness, and dystonia. Unfortunately, the disease's progression doesn't end there, as Sarah also noted a couple other effects. Indeed, she highlighted that the arms and legs of the patient become distorted, curling up into the body. Alongside that, sufferers lose the ability to laugh as well, with their muscles growing too weak. On that note, Marion's prognosis clearly didn't look very promising. NPC is always fatal, Sarah continued. For kids like Marion with early neurological signs under age 2, it's often fatal by age 5 or 6. There are no FDA-approved treatments. So this is what we heard when the doctor said Marion has Niemann-Pick type C. All of this. Given the severity of the diagnosis, Paul and Sarah were unsurprisingly devastated. Knowing that there wasn't a cure, Marion's mom even admitted that she felt like she wanted to give up then and there. Such was the feeling of overwhelming despair. However, the couple's mindset quickly changed when they looked at the situation from their daughter's perspective. Marion is bursting with love. She's kind, she's funny. She fights for every single step forward, Sarah explained. She'd already been fighting NPC her whole life, we just didn't know it. And then it was clear. Marion couldn't be her own voice. She needed our help to fight. And that's what we decided to do, to fight with everything we could. On the back of that, Sarah and Paul started to look at things in a more positive note, noting the importance of the early diagnosis. But while they tried to remain upbeat for Marion, the California residents knew that time was very much against them. So they began to do some intriguing research. Following a number of long conversations with moms and dads in similar situations, Paul and Sarah then uncovered a trial drug named VTS-270. According to the latter, this treatment could stop the symptoms of the condition from getting worse. At that stage, though, the pair encountered their next challenge. It had to be given intrathecally, as an injection into the spinal fluid, for it to travel into the brain and fight back against the neurological destruction, Sarah wrote on Love What Matters. Given Marion's age, she would need to be sedated under anesthesia to safely receive it. Every 2 weeks, indefinitely. We felt so lucky and also completely terrified. But before Sarah and Paul could press ahead with the treatment, they needed to traverse a tricky hurdle first. There was a clinical trial for this drug, but you had to be 4 years old, and Marion was only 1, she revealed. This meant our only hope was accessing the drug through compassionate use. Thankfully for Marion, a physician named Dr. Kravis agreed to start the treatment in Chicago, Illinois. As a result, however, the McLaughlins would need to travel out of California regularly, which could put a big strain on their finances. With some potential tough times ahead, Paul and Sarah then received a helping hand. Indeed, the local community rallied around the family, with Marion's school launching a bike-a-thon fundraiser. That event subsequently brought in around $4,000, while other individuals looked to play their part in raising more money with further initiatives. Those efforts were certainly appreciated by Sarah as she prepared for the trips to Chicago. "We started flying back and forth to Chicago," Sarah recalled, "simultaneously trying to raise awareness about this horrible disease no one's ever heard of and trying to save Marion's life. We didn't know if the treatment would work or how well it would work or for how long." With that in mind, Sarah started a GoFundMe page during that period as well, setting a lofty target of $150,000. The money would then be used to help fund research into Niemann-Pick type C. The page subsequently brought in over $75,000 in donations before a new website was launched to continue the work. Sarah also offered an update on Marion's progress at the back end of her Love What Matters post. She wrote, "After 5 trips to Chicago, we were wonderfully able to begin Marion's treatments at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, where she continues going today, every other Friday, over 2 years later." And the good news didn't end there. After 5 treatments, Marion began walking, Sarah explained. Then her energy increased. She slowly started talking more, playing more, instead of being too tired and watching with a smile, laughing more. Completely, totally, and endlessly obsessed with all things her big sister, things we hadn't even noticed were missing suddenly were there. However, there were still some noticeable effects from her condition, as Marion struggled in certain areas of her development. Sarah also lifted the lid on the additional treatments that her daughter was receiving. As it turned out, Marion had to cram a lot into her standard week. Marion has 6 therapeutic intervention services a week for speech, occupational, and physical therapy, on top of preschool and hospital visits every other week, Sarah continued, plus a slew of doctors. It can get exhausting. She can walk long distances now, but does get tired and still has some weakness. Sarah then provided an example of Marion's physical difficulties, thinking back to a trip to the beach. Along with Emily, Marion attempted to traverse a sandy hill, only to lose her balance. After admitting that she couldn't manage it alone, her sibling helped her up and they climbed the mound hand in hand, with her mom snapping a picture. Although the situation is looking a lot more promising than it did back in 2017, Sarah nonetheless made a heartbreaking point. "We still don't know what's going to happen, what Marion's life will be like, how long she can live," the California resident wrote. "But we do know we've absolutely altered the course of the disease for Marion." In keeping with the family's positive outlook, though, Sarah then touched upon Marion's plans for the near future. The youngster was set to mark her 4th birthday with a party, in fact, which of course belied her condition. From there, her proud mom concluded the Love What Matters post with a touching message. "That Marion is doing any of these things is amazing," Sarah added. "It defies the disease. It's the hope I didn't think was there anymore. The cure for NPC will come. The question is, will it come in time? This is our fight. This is our life. This is our hope. This is our hope for Marion."